Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to day 8 of the 2023 Afcon Diaries, brought to you by www.africasacountry.com, where you can get some Afcon coverage, as well as coverage on other affairs on the continent. We are still here in Abidjan, and today there were 3 matches. Once again, we had started the day off with Algeria versus Burkina Faso, and then we went on to Angola versus Mauritania, and finally we finished the day with another interesting match between Mali and Tunisia. So let's start with Algeria versus Burkina Faso, and this is the match that I think I'm going to be speaking the most about. It's the match that I paid most attention to, and it's a match that I know the best in terms of the sides that were playing in it. Now, the first thing that we need to know is that these sides, they know each other very, very well. Really, over the last 10 years, Algeria and Burkina Faso have clashed a good number of times, whether that be in friendly matches or most notably in World Cup qualifiers, both in 2014 for the 2014 World Cup and for the 2022 FIFA World Cup as well. On both of those occasions, Algeria eliminated Burkina Faso, but they were always very tough in cagey matches. Nonetheless, players like Bertrand Traoré, players like Sofiane Farouli, they played in these matches, sometimes even in the 2013 matches for the 2014 World Cup. So these are teams and nations that know one another very well on the footballing scene. That's just the first point I wanted to make. The match was a good match. It was actually a very, very entertaining match. Look, I thought that Algeria were the better side throughout the match. I thought that Burkina Faso scored an incredible goal at the very end of the first half in stoppage time, actually. Faisal Tabsoba takes a touch away from the defender on his back, gets his head up, shoots in a perfectly driven cross as Mohamed Konate, the actually Ivorian-born striker who plays for Burkina Faso, makes a perfect run between the fullback and the center half. And he just makes a leaping header just past the penalty mark and powers the ball past Anthony Mendrea, the Algerian goalkeeper. So that was, I think, in my opinion, it was an indefensible goal because it was a perfect cross. I mean, tip-top. Amazing, really, like, incredible precision. It was a perfect run, perfect timing, perfect header. There are times in football, I think, where you can't just blame, players, or you can't blame coaches or schemes. Sometimes, when you play at a very high level, really good players are going to do really good things, and they can be indefensible at times. Algeria comes out in the second half, and they score a goal via Bounedjah. It's a little bit of a sloppy goal. Youssef Beledi hits a free kick, hits the wall, bounces around. Nabil Bentaleb hits a shot on goal. Bounedjah gets the rebound and knocks it in. Okay, cool. Then Algeria concedes a sloppy penalty kick. And this is the second time in 2 matches that Algeria concedes a penalty kick. So you have to think that if they didn't, concede those 2 penalty kicks, they'd have 6 points right now. Very, very sloppy defending for both of them. The first one, Nabil Bentaleb, in the first match against Angola, comes out trying to clear the ball away, takes a player's leg, and this time it was the same thing. Renet Nouri swinging for the fences, trying to clear the ball, and he takes a player's leg, Issa Kabore's leg, and it's quite clearly a penalty, which Bertrand Traoré slots home. And then in the final minute of the match, Bounedjah equalizes for a second time, this time from a corner kick. He beats Steve Yago, rises highest, and powers in a header. And Algeria share the spoils with Burkina Faso, 2-2 draw. Now that we covered exactly how the match went, let's talk about a few different things. Number one, I thought that Burkina Faso tactically came into this game with a much more interesting game plan than Algeria. And this is going to be a recurring theme for Algeria and the coach Jamal Belmadi. Burkina Faso come into this match, and we didn't really know what they were playing because they had Adamo Nagalo, who's usually a center half, as a right back. And they had Issa Kabore, who's usually a right back, as a right winger. But it really was a 4-3-3 out of possession. And in possession, they were playing a 3-5-2. Why is that important? When they're out of possession and they're in that 4-3-3, Nagalo, who's one of the rising stars of this tournament, it's just 21 years old, started more than 15 matches for Nordsjælland in Denmark. He's on Youssef Beledi, so they put an out-and-out defender, not an attacking fullback, an out-and-out defender on probably Algeria's most dangerous man. Definitely was in this match. And Issa Kabore, who's usually a right defender, right fullback, he's on a right winger to sort of neutralize Algeria's ultra-attacking fullback, Rayan Ait Nouri. So I thought that was very, very smart. And Burkina Faso do have really good ball-playing center half. So when they were in possession of the ball, you had Steve Yago, the left back, push up, and you had just the three center halves in the back line, and even Burkina's midfield pushed as far as they could into Algeria's half. They didn't always find, the line-breaking passes to supplement those midfielders and to feed them and to try and break down Algeria's play. But tactically, I thought it was a really good game plan by Hubert Veloud. Very, very interesting. Whereas Jemal Belmadi lines up in a 4-3-3. It's the same 4-3-3 that Algeria has been playing for the last 5 years. It's predictable. It's uninspiring. And it's just so easy to game plan against, right? So that's one of the interesting things about Jemal Belmadi is that he came in to the Algerian national team when he was a new coach, and there was a sort of freshness about him. And he's just become really stale. That the formation and the tactics is one thing, but let's take another thing. When Jemal Belmadi was appointed the coach of the Algerian national team, he comes to the press conference and says, "You know what? There are players who believe that the national team belongs to them. They have bad attitudes. That's not how we go about things over here. I'm wiping the slate clean. Everybody has a chance to do anything. And players that I think have attitude problems or players who I think the national team belongs to them, I'm going to discard." And as a result, actually, one of the starting midfielders from yesterday's match, Nabil Ben Taleb, is discarded. A left back, Fawzi Ghoulam, discarded. There are several key players from the Algerian previous iteration of the Algerian national team that are discarded. So he's coming in with no clicks, no players of influence, nothing of the sort. It's all about what you can do on the pitch. And now the narrative, especially from Algerian supporters, is that it's the opposite. There are players playing on this Algerian national team that do not deserve to be starting when considering their form and their style of play. A few examples, but the main example is actually the captain, Riyad Mahrez, and this is one of the main controversies that has come out of this match. Riyad Mahrez really hasn't been in form over the last 6 months with the Algerian national team. Maybe even a little more than that. Nobody's denying that he's been, an incredible player in the past for the Algerian national team. He's been one of the best players of all time for the Algerian national team. He scored incredibly important goals on that 2019 run when we won the African Cup of Nations. But he hasn't been great recently, and in this African Cup of Nations in particular, he's been very, very disappointing. Physically, he's much less energetic. On the ball, he's been dispossessed far too easily. And even when taking set pieces, he's been very, very wasteful. I know he's not stupid. He knows he's been subpar. But there's a point now that I think maybe people outside of the Algerian national team, maybe non-Algerians don't realize, but we're getting close to a boiling point here between supporters and Riyad Mahrez and Jemal Belmadi. I think supporters really have enough, especially when you see who's on the bench. And before I talk about that, I mean, besides Riyad Mahrez, today we started Soufiane Ferrouli, 34 years old, playing for a very tiny club in Turkey. Who was, again, an incredible player for the national team 10, 11 years ago, but we're in 2024. Some of our defenders, Aissa Mondi, for example, we don't know what he's done really to justify his position, again, over the last year or so. But these players, especially Riyad Mahrez, we all know have a great relationship with the coach Jemal Belmadi. And as a result, I'm not saying that's why he's starting him all the time, but it certainly seems that way. And on the bench, you have a player like Mohamed Amin Amoura, who's been one of the most efficient players in Europe. 13 goals in 15 matches for Union Saint-Gilloise. of those 15 matches, only 8 of them are starts. And he comes in at halftime and he completely changes the game. Here are some statistics. Sofiane Farouli played the first half in the exact same position as Mohamed Amin Amoura when he came in the second half. Sofiane Farouli finished the first half with 11 touches on the ball. Amoura had 25. Riyad Mahrez, who played 74 minutes to Amoura's 45, had 26. And again, when comparing the two wing players, Riyad Mahrez and Youssouf Belaili had 48 touches to Riyad Mahrez's 26. In those 26 touches, he had 14 successful passes to 17 total passes. Riyad Mahrez had an XG of 0.01 or 0.03 and an XA of 0.01 for a total XG plus XA of 0.04. Horrible numbers for him. And again, you get this from watching the match, not just relying on statistics that you can find online. Mohamed Amoura, how does he come on and change the game? He changes the game because he's not asking for the ball at his feet. Youssouf Belaili wants the ball at his feet. Riyad Mahrez wants the ball at his feet. And a lot of our midfielders, in particular, Nabil Bentaleb, Rami Zarouki, Sofiane Farouli, who's usually somebody that makes runs into space, today they all wanted the ball at their feet and they were not nearly energetic enough. I know we were playing in 36-degree heat, but when Mohamed Amin Amoura came on, it was incredible. In the first 5 minutes, he completely switched the game. He's making runs behind fullbacks, behind center halves. He's getting stuck in challenges. He's putting in perfectly, weighted crosses. He was quite clearly, along with Youssouf Belaili and Bounedjah, the best players on this Algerian national team. And Mohamed Amin Amoura, without a shadow of a doubt, should be starting every single match for Algeria for the rest of the tournament. There's absolutely no doubt in anybody's mind. Now it's going to be interesting to see how Jamal Belmadi does that. How does he implement that? So that's really one of the things that's really been on my mind, and that's really been the dominant narrative for the Algerian national team is the coach has been really stubborn. He's stuck by a group of players that don't justify, through their performances, don't justify their starting places. It's stale. Algerian football is stale. It has been stale really since they crashed out in the 2021 African Cup of Nations. There's a lack of confidence, not just with the attacking players, but also with the defending players. This is one thing that I think, this is a reason why Algeria cannot win this tournament, in my opinion, as it stands right now, is that you have a back four of Rayan Aït-Nouri from Wolves, Rami Ben Sebaini at Dortmund, Issa Monde at Villarreal, and Youssef Attal at Nice. These are all good players. I'm not saying they're bad players. They're all mistake-prone defensively. Rami Ben Sebaini, the most solid he's been defensively is when he's actually a left back and not a left center half. But then, who do you bring in as a center back if you're Algeria? I think you could throw in Zainuddin Bel'id, Mohamed Amin Tougai. I think they might do a better job than what Issa Monde is doing at the current moment. But then you'd have to bench Rayan Aït-Nouri. But the defensive balance is not right, in my opinion. The fullbacks are ultra-attacking, and the center halves, one of them lacks a lot of pace. Excuse me. And both of them are injury-prone. So that's a problem. I mentioned 3 weaknesses for the Algerian national team prior to this tournament. Center-back pairing, which was a problem today. Defensive midfield play. Nabil Bentaleb has started as a number 6, as a defensive midfielder over the last 2 matches. The first match, he was horrific, and he conceded the penalty. This match, I actually thought he played pretty well, and so that's positive. And he didn't have Ismail Ben Nasser next to him, who, would definitely help out in a lot of physical duels and stuff. And the third one was defending set pieces, and I thought today that Algeria did an okay job of defending Burkina Faso set pieces, but they were troubled defending those set pieces. So a lot of those weaknesses still seem to be there. The coach still seems stuck in his same old tendencies. A lot of the players that we're relying on are past it. And unless we see a radical change here where Jamal Belmadi benches Riyad Mahrez, maybe, or at least subs him out after 60 minutes if he's not doing anything. We need to start seeing brave, courageous decisions from the coach. We need to start seeing fresh, new decisions from the coach. I don't think they're coming because he's been really, really stringent and stubborn over the last 2 years, and I don't expect that to change now. But if it does, I think this Algeria team has the quality to go far in this tournament, and if it doesn't, I think this Algeria national team is also capable of crashing out early once again. So anyways, that was Algeria versus Burkina Faso. We talked about that for 16 minutes. Let's touch on the other matches very quickly. Mauritania versus Angola was not what I was expecting at all. Mauritania only have one goal in their three. They only had one goal in their previous appearances. Their two previous appearances at the African Cup of Nations, and that was a penalty. They're not a side that's known for scoring goals. They're a side that's known for being very difficult to break down, being very organized. Their coach Amir Abdou, I think, sets them up great in terms of out of possession structure. They tend to then maybe want to score goals through set pieces. And so I wasn't expecting them to concede 3 goals. It's the first one off of a set piece when Gelson Dalla scored. And Gelson Dalla, like Jenny Katamo, I think are the 2 most underrated players in this tournament. I make up statistics like that all the time, but I really do think that they might be 2 of the most underrated players in this tournament. Gelson Dalla gets a brace, the winger playing for El Wakra. And I thought Angola were the better side for large swaths of this match. Them playing Gilberto, who was great at the Shan in Algeria earlier on this year. He was also great for Angola today. Gelson Dalla worked. Mablulu, I thought, hairy defenders. And they still have, young Zini was a new player that came in that I've been waiting to watch him for a very long time. I thought he had an okay performance today. Overall, Angola I thought were the better side, and the only goals they conceded were goals that were, very difficult to stop. Excuse me. You had Sidi Ammar, I believe, Sidi Bouna Ammar, dribble past like 6 defenders, Maradona as goal and score, and the second one was Aboubakry Koita, whose beautiful wonder strike of 30 meters away. So I don't think Angola could, you can't set a team up to defend against that. It's just individual skill. But overall, I thought they were the better side and they deserved to win. And after the performance against Algeria and against Mauritania, I'm not betting against them to get knocked out early in the knockout stages. They now have 4 points. They're on to the next round, so we'll see how that goes. Finally, we had Tunisia versus Mali. This is a match that I didn't watch too much of. But from what I did see, Mali monopolized possession, especially in the second half. Tunisia didn't have many chances. They were playing with a false 9. Youssef Msakni as a false 9. Their goal when they did score was beautiful, intricate play. And it's frustrating with Tunisia because you see what they're capable of with a play like that. But then the rest of the game, they're not able to hold on to possession of the ball. They were getting dominated in a lot of physical duels. And it seemed like the coach and the players were okay with getting a draw and really putting all of their marbles on their next match versus South Africa, which is, that's not something you want to be doing, right? South Africa are a good side, and I hope they're not underestimating them. The Carthage Eagles are. Mali, Lassine Sinayako scored a good goal. He's one of those players who, I was never really confident in. I always thought, Ibrahim Akone or El Bilal Toure were going to be the strikers for Mali. But since they don't have either of them, I think Sinayako's done a good job of deputizing. Other than that, I wasn't too impressed with Mali, but it's like one of those games. Mali and Tunisia have played each other in the last 2 Afcons. It's always 1-0 or 1-1. And then even in World Cup qualifying, they also know each other very well, like Algeria and Burkina Faso. It's always these cagey affairs in midfield, like these possession battles, very few clear-cut chances. And today was similar. Mali were the better side, but Tunisia were not thoroughly outplayed. And now I think both of them are just like living to fight another day. That's my main observation from that match. Anyways, that's it. We've gone for another 20 minutes of the 2023 Afcon Diaries, day 8. Can't believe that. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think of all that I've been spouting on here. And thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you tomorrow. Peace.